Hello, everyone. This is Father Son Galaxy. I am Kerwin, and this is Keith.
Hi, everyone.
We are here to do a spoiler review of Thunderbolts. Last week we were okay, so we're recording this a week later. Giving people time to watch the movie. But we were in the theater on Saturday. We had a great time. So if you didn't know or if you haven't seen it, we or heard it, we did a podcast live at the movie theater, the Regal Cinema in King of Prussia. Had a very good time. It was packed in the theater.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So it was such a great time to go to the movies that past weekend because I'm certain the people there, were either there to see Sinners or Thunderbolts, right?
Yeah, we should probably get a check out the box office with Thunderbolts so far.
Yeah, well, the box office actually it came in a little bit lower than Captain America's first weekend, which is interesting.
Captain America did have 4 days. Like, if you think about it, its launch weekend was a holiday weekend, right?
Well, I know it opened on the 14th of February, but I don't remember at the 14th was a Friday or a Thursday. But usually, yeah, they have advanced screening on Thursday nights, and then they go through the weekend. So, but regardless, well, Thunderbolts had the same thing. Regardless, they didn't make as much money as Captain America, but that has nothing no nothing against the movie because we enjoy Thunderbolts. We also enjoy Captain America, but Thunderbolts was a better movie, in my opinion. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I do.
Yeah, yeah. It was just so good to see people going back to the movie theater. It was just wonderful. So we're here to do a spoiler review of Thunderbolts. All right, it is directed by Jake Schreier, screenplay by Eric Pearson and Joanna Kalo. So of course we got Florence Pugh as Yelena. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, David Harbour as Alexi, the Red Guardian, Wyatt Russell playing John Walker, Hannah John Kamen as Ava Starr, Ghost, Julie Louise-Dreyfus as Valentina, Allegra de Fontaine, Geraldine Vishanathan as Mel, Louis Pullman as Bob, also known as Sentry in the Void. All right, so
This is Louis Pullman's second time being Bob.
when was he Bob before?
Top Gun. Maverick.
His character's name was Bob? I didn't know that. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, well, hey, he's doing very well for himself, right? He was in Top Gun Maverick. Wow, huge movie. And then he's also in Thunderbolts, so that's pretty good. So, let's talk about the opening scene, which sets the tone to me for the movie, right? If you listen to Yelena's monologue, it's very interesting. So she starts off by saying, "There's something wrong with me, an emptiness. I thought it started when my sister died, but now it feels like something bigger, just a void." And then the shot that you see of her, she's standing on top of a building and she's on the ledge and it looks like she is ready to just end her life. Like we didn't know what was going on. She's just standing there. Um, and when she's having this conversation, we hear this, inner monologue, we're thinking, wow, like she's going through a lot, and we're going to find out what that is. And then she jumps. And of course she has a parachute.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then her last line is, or maybe I'm just bored. And she gets right into her new mission and she runs into this facility and she starts taking out the guards. And the mission apparently was to destroy the facility, which she does. She leaves some charges and the place blows up.
Yep.
Yeah.
He sends it sky high.
Sky high, right.
They
Okay.
got cooked.
Yeah. All right. Well, so whatever that laboratory is, well, actually, we're going to find out why that laboratory needed to be destroyed. But the next scene is we see Elena go to visit Alexi. All right. And Alexi is home and he's just, with his t-shirt and shorts on, he's watching TV. He's not doing anything. And he's giving the impression that, now, correct me if I'm wrong. I know it's been a week. She called him first, or did she knock on the door? Surprising. Yeah, I think she knocked on the door.
He had to pretend to clean up and
Right.
like he was doing okay, which he's really doing nothing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So whatever it is that he's going through, you know, maybe that's how he's coping, with just sitting and eating and, you know, vegging out or whatever you call it, is that
crazy?
yeah, like, that's his life, he comes home and he eats and he watches TV. So he answers the door and Yelena's there. You could tell that there's something that she wants to say to him, and she's not feeling very well and she's not happy. And, Lexi says to her, there's no higher calling than being a hero. Your sister Natasha knew something about that. Yelena says that's just a fairy tale. And she ends up leaving Alexi, unknowingly. He didn't know that she even walked out the door. And then she gets a call about this last mission, apparently from Valentina.
Like
Yep.
a Deponte.
Right. Yes.
Yes, the vault.
Yes.
Yes.
And the vault. All right. So Valentina, let's talk about Valentina. We see her at a congressional hearing. Apparently, she is there to testify. She's in trouble. She's on trial. She's in trouble. Apparently, she's up for impeachment. Not quite sure.
We all know impeachment does not work in the legal system.
Well, yeah. So she is the head of the CIA. And, one of the things that she pushes is that the Avengers are not coming back. They're not here to save us. They're not coming to save us. So, I get the impression that maybe she has a solution for that. She didn't. I don't think she reached out and told Congress exactly what she has planned, except to say that the Avengers is not coming back to help. Right? They're not coming back to help. Okay. All right. Um, then we find Yelena, John, and Ava in this facility.
Yeah. So Yelena is sent to go kill Ava, but Ava's supposed to kill a U.S. agent, and so is Taskmaster. But Ava's also supposed to kill Taskmaster. So they're all sent to get rid of each other, and they're in this vault which locks up, and it's set to incinerate in 2 minutes. Um, of course, Taskmaster gets benched before the season even starts. The Ghost ends her career real quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Which was a play so telegraphed that. Ooh.
Well, I guess it didn't come as a surprise to anyone that Taskmaster was not going to make it through the movie, but we were shocked, I guess, that it happened so quickly.
Really?
No? Okay. All right.
I mean, this is the only scene we see Taskmaster in,
Yeah,
except for that one at the tower, but it looks very photoshopped.
that's true. Yes, exactly. Right. In the trailers, like we didn't see her in the movie. Yeah.
I think even Disney knew that Taskmaster was going to die, and then they made it too obvious.
Yeah. I don't know the story behind why they didn't want her to return. I get the impression I remember she showed up in the Black Widow movie.
Yes, and we all loved that.
Yeah, the Black Widow movie, didn't really do a lot in terms of, excitement for Marvel.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy Black Widow.
Especially because Black Widow's supposed to come out post Civil War.
Yeah.
Like, it still takes place after Civil War, but by now Natasha had already passed away, so there's really no point in making a Black Widow movie. I guess it was nice to introduce like Red Guardian and Yelena being the next.
Oh yeah, right. That's a good point. Yeah, yeah. And Taskmaster to me was not really one of those characters that were memorable.
Yeah. I don't really care about Task.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think most of the MCU fans felt the same way that, okay, well, if she's gone, not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. So this is interesting. So you're right. We got Yelena, uh, John Walker, and Ava Ghost in this facility, and apparently they're sent to kill each other. Okay. And then there's Bob. So Bob shows up. He must have been in some type of crate, and he managed to get himself out.
Yeah, I think one of them knocked into it and just he got it popped out.
Yeah.
Vision in Age of Ultron when he showed up at the cradle.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the same cradle actually. That'd be a really cool.
Well, it turns out that they were set up. All right.
Yeah. By Valentina Allegra de Fondue.
Right. And so was she also looking, she was actually looking to wipe out these characters along with Bob. So why did you, unless Bob snuck in the facility and Allegra may not knew about, Valentina may not have known about it, but was she trying to get rid of Bob as well?
Yeah, I think what happened is he was part of that elite super soldier program to make him a sentry, but they didn't think it worked, so they kind of just chucked him in the garbage can. The incinerator was supposed to get rid of him too.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Well, of course that didn't happen, and they managed to escape, except for Bob. Bob stayed behind and allowed the other characters enough time to get out and escape. And then we see this showdown with military, and they're all have their guns pointed at Bob, and they start firing. Now, first of all, the guy has his hands up in the air, right? He's surrendering.
I don't think you're allowed to fire at a surrendering person who's also unarmed.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So I don't.
They all get court-martialed.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what triggered them to fire.
I think it was Yelena. Not Yelena.
So maybe Valentina gave the orders to kill him.
Or probably that one dude, the guy who just couldn't hold his trigger finger.
Yeah. Okay.
Couldn't halt them from shooting
Right.
my boy Bob.
Yes. Well, they shot him.
So they all empty the clip on Bob.
Yes.
And he just gets back up. His shirt's like ripped, but he's perfectly fine. And then he jumps up into the air and starts flying, and then crashes and breaks the road.
Yes. Right.
So, Yelena, John, and Ava get stranded.
And Bob seems to be very powerful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we know he's Sentry. We don't exactly know how he becomes Sentry, but we do know that he is very, very powerful.
Yeah. We also know a little bit about his troubled past.
Yes. Yeah, we'll talk about that. All right, so now we've got Yelena, John, and Ava. They're on the run. It's, they hitch a ride.
Yeah. Steal a Jeep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then they get picked up.
By the Red Guardian.
Okay. Now, this is interesting. So they get picked up. Well, actually, you know what? I'm skipping ahead. Let me go back because, let me follow my notes here. All right. So we're going to talk about Bucky Barnes, right? Now, Bucky is a congressman. And
my boy.
Right. And he was present at the hearing, the impeachment hearing for Valentina. If you remember, because I don't, he somehow was able to get in touch with her assistant named Mel.
Yeah.
Now, I don't remember if Mel reached out to Bucky or Bucky reached out to Mel.
Mel reached out to Bucky.
Okay.
Yeah, he gave her his business card, and she called him. She's like, "Hey, just gonna keep you updated. Track my phone. Valentina's kind of going crazy."
Now, that's interesting. Okay. Now, why do you think Mel picked Bucky out of all the other congressmen? Do you think she knew about his history?
Because he wouldn't reach out to her.
Oh, so he reached out to her first.
No, like he gave her the business card. So she called him.
Right. Okay. Well, did she know who Bucky Barnes was?
Yeah, everyone knows.
Okay. So that was the point, right? So somehow, they met. I think it was like at a dinner party or something, and he passed
a little fake event.
Yeah. And he passes her a business card, and, Mel says, Bucky Barnes. Wow. Okay. And then she decides that she's going to fill him in on what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. And tell him the truth about what Valentina has in store, that she is running an illegal operation to destroy the team. And there's this experiment that's going on that turned Bob into a superhuman. And then we'll get back to Yelena and Walker and Ava hitching a ride with Alexi. So he has a job as a chauffeur.
Yeah.
He hears a story about Bob, right? And saw he must have heard about the explosion at the facility, and that maybe Yelena and the group may not have survived. So he was kind of, I don't know. Well, yeah, right. And he might have been worried about them. So he was driving out.
Like, don't go into the woods.
Yes. And he was going out into the desert, and, he's warning them that, it's dangerous, but, he's a little too late, but he shows up.
What a guy.
And they get into the limo, and he takes off. And then there's this tank, or 2 or 3 tanks, going after the limousine, right? And these are the people working for the CIA, I'm assuming, or working for Valentina, and they're firing at the limousine. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so he's like, it's bulletproof, don't worry.
Right.
And then they get shot through the window. John's like, what happened to bulletproof?
Right. Is that how John talks?
That's how he talks about it.
In your head, okay.
You got a really squeaky voice.
Okay. Right. All right. And they're asking Alexi to go faster, and he's gone past at least
50.
45 to 50 miles an hour, which is not going to cut it.
And of course, the tanks are gaining.
Right.
And then my boy Bucky Barnes shows up.
Yeah, how about that?
Shooting discs at the tanks, has them doing flips like they're acrobats.
Yes. Yeah. It was,
Everyone's like, "Yeah, Bucky!" And
yeah.
then he shoots them. Has the vehicle flip over.
Yes, he does. Right. Yeah. And you have not seen Terminator 2.
I actually thought that was like a Terminator.
Yeah, it reminded
The
me
shades
yes,
and
with
the lights.
Schwartz, exactly. And then the same thing with so, the Terminator is riding the motorcycle with one hand, he has on the handlebar or the, steering with one hand while he's shooting with the other. And when he has to reload, like he cocks, I don't even know how he does it. Like he just flips the gun over and cocks it and then fires again and he flips it over, like a shotgun. Yeah.
I don't know how shotguns work,
Yeah,
legally speaking.
right. And just Bucky coming out of nowhere on the motorcycle just gave me, Terminator feel. So that was pretty cool to see Bucky. And you're right. He fires. Not only does he flip the tanker trucks over.
Where did he come from?
Oh, well, have no idea.
Probably tracked the right.
But he was able to find them. Yeah. Uh, not only does he, take care of the tanks, but he also flips over the limousine because he's trying to get them to stop. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the way to do it.
What need to stop is to almost end their life.
Yeah. Right.
And then they all get knocked out. They wake up in his bunker.
Yes.
Yep.
That was a cool car chase. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mel gives Bucky a ring, and she's like, "Hey, there's this guy named Bob, and Valentina's kind of like behind him getting superpowers." And Bucky's like, "Bob?" And the Thunderbolts say, "Yes, Bob." Yeah, of course, he didn't believe them
Right.
because their story sounds literally insane.
Yes.
But once he got the call from Mel verifying that everything that happened was actually true, he freed them all, and they get so.
Right. Now, when he talks to them, he tells them, okay, well, the truth about Valentina, and that is she is the one behind trying to kill them all. And Bucky's trying to, gather the troops and get them to say, okay, we got to do this and go ahead and get her. Yelena's a little hesitant and she's saying, well, no, you don't want us. I mean, we're broken people. So, you must be looking for somebody else. And then, so Bucky says to her, well, the past doesn't go away and you either live in it forever or you do something about it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then let's talk about the name Thunderbolts. When the chase scene happened in Limousine, Alexi came up with the name Thunderbolts because it's the name of Yelena's childhood soccer team. Was it okay? All right. Oh, that's right. So yes, Yelena was the one that told them about the Thunderbolts, the soccer team, and
Alexei was just overjoyed to hear that they named their new team after.
right, yes, right, and he just kept calling them Thunderbolts, and John Walker did not like the name, and it was like, okay,
John Walker doesn't like it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll talk more about John. Okay, so now the Thunderbolts are ready to take on Valentina, and they go to what was once the Avengers Tower, right? Apparently, she is the owner of the tower.
Yeah.
Right.
So back in Homecoming, we
Yeah.
never found out who bought Avengers Tower. Now we know.
Yeah, it's her. Okay.
10 years.
Interesting. All right.
In the universe.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Now I'm wondering why she wanted that tower, but I guess
It's an icon.
yeah, okay. And she's got the money for it, apparently. Okay. And here we go.
So if you were gonna do secret operations like she is, you probably wouldn't want to do it in such a public space. But I guess you kind of had the idea to make it the Avengers Tower later on anyway.
Hmm.
But she called it the Watchtower.
The Watchtower, yeah, yeah.
I guess Avengers would copyright it, and I don't think Sam Wilson would have liked that very much.
Good point, right? For now, right? So she's not taking the name that belongs to them, but let's wait and see. All right, so now Sentry is revealed, right? So now he's got the suit on. He changed his hair color.
Dyed his hair.
He dyed his hair, right? Yeah.
A very good dye, I think.
Yeah. And he shows his strength. And and the Thunderbolts are no match for him.
He literally had no chance.
Yeah.
He threw my boy Red Guardian out the window and brought him back in. I thought for sure he was going to get dropped.
Yeah. That is just as if he has all of their powers rolled up into one. Like,
and more. I think it's like Thor and Hulk combined. I
Yeah.
think about the power set because he's got super strength, flight, agility. Actually, well, no, he's like Thor and Wanda because of all the mind control related powers he has.
Mhm.
Also, the flight,
Yes, exactly. And
brute strength.
right, right. And how, like, explain this to me. Like, what do you call that kind of power where you can throw somebody out the window and bring them right back in?
Telekinesis.
That's telekinesis?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just moving things with your mind.
Wow. That's incredible. That is incredible. So that's exactly what happened. He ripped off Bucky's arm.
Yeah, I feel like Bucky gets his arm ripped off every time we see him.
Right, and he's just so used to just putting it back
Ripped
on.
off his arm.
Right.
Dora Milaje ripped off his arm.
Yes.
Sentry ripped off his arm.
Yeah.
This is like how the list of people who can wield Mjolnir is growing. Like it's exponential.
Yes. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but
Super glue that arm back.
but at least he could put his arm back in place, and then he's good to go. And and I want to talk about the mind reading that Bob or Sentry can do, because this is very important to the story. Apparently, when you touch him, he enters your mind. The person who's touching him, he enters their mind, and he can go and look at the past trauma.
Yeah, there's little like liminal spaces, dare I say, of your darkest moments possible.
Yeah.
A lot of them seem to involve people dying, except John's. I think he's frankly the luckiest because at least he didn't have to watch somebody die over and over.
Yeah, it's very tough because um, all of them. Although we only saw Yelena, John, and Valentina, their traumatic past. But let's talk about
Yeah,
Yelena.
Red Guardians and Ghosts, I believe, in their respective films, Black Widow and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, gotcha.
Like flashbacks and stuff.
Okay, so we saw their backstory, but it wasn't Bob actually searching through their mind. Okay, well, because I was going to bring that point up, I was going to say, okay, well, he was able to look at these three, but not Bucky or Ava or Alexi.
We've already seen all of Bucky's lowest points. Yeah,
That's true, right?
pretty much all of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We know about his past. So Elena apparently
Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now that I think about it,
exactly right. Yeah, or even before that, right? Civil War, right? Or Winter Soldier. Yeah.
But I point to Falcon and the Winter Soldier specifically because remember he had the list that he was taking off. Atoning for all the people he killed as Winter Soldier.
That was a really good series. I like that series. I haven't watched it in a few years, but I want to go back and watch it. Yeah. Yeah. That was
I
really
appreciate that kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
Like it was grounded, but not overly grounded.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I really like that. Got to go back and watch it.
Back to Thunderbolts.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So Elena, there's a red room. Is that what it's called? This test in the red room that she took when she was a very young. Yes, one of her first tests, and apparently she had to lure one of her friends.
Kill her friend. So like basically she lured her friend out into the forest.
Yes.
And then, the Red Room agent just kind of showed up, pushed Elena to the side, and unfortunately took this little girl's life.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand. Frankly, I don't really see how that's helpful.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, at least Elena wasn't the one to actually pull the trigger, but
It's the same amount of guilt because she didn't
sure.
kill her.
Right. Well, right, because she stood there and saw it happen and didn't do anything about it. Yeah.
You're there knowing that her friend was not going to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just imagine that you're witnessing, a friend of yours being taken down. So that's what Bob saw from Yelena. Now, John also touched him, and then we go back to a scene where he is sitting and he's on his phone.
Yeah, he's reading,
scrolling. Yeah.
Specifically,
Yeah.
it being the Captain America. And there's like, you're not watching him, you're on your phone, which is exactly what Bond says when I have to watch Maceo.
Right, yeah. And then we're talking about a toddler because she's she is in the crib and screaming, and he's not paying any attention to his baby.
Like, wailing.
Yeah.
He does not really care.
Yeah.
And of course, his wife has to step in and take care of the kid. I'm pretty sure they're getting divorced as well, unfortunately.
So I want to talk a little bit about John Walker in case that people have not seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Can I do it?
Sure, please. Talk about John.
Walker. This man was football champion. He was talented even before he got the Super Soldier Serum. He was contracted by the government to become the new Captain America after Steve Rogers retired. Sam gave up the shield because he didn't think he was worthy of it. And John Walker got it. Unfortunately, he killed an unarmed man in cold blood in public in front of everyone. So he kind of got disgraced. Sam snatched the shield back. So he became Captain America afterwards. And John Walker was basically dishonorably discharged. And Valentina showed up and said, "Hey, bro, I got a job for you."
Yeah, and ever since then, he's been working for Valentina.
Yep.
Now, let me see if I got this right. If I remember, he took the super soldier serum,
Yes.
John, right, on his own because he felt he needed to be stronger, like Captain America,
Yeah.
right? And I will never forget the scene. I don't know, as long as I live. The moment when he, like you said, he took, he was out in the middle of the,
In a plaza.
yeah, in the middle of, in broad daylight, where people around, they got the camera phones, cameras and everything. Yeah. He literally kills a guy with the shield.
Yeah.
Right. And then,
I know the shield could be used like that.
right. And he is, just ramming this shield into the guy. And then you see him holding the shield with the blood on it. Like, that was just absolutely an amazing shot. And just something that I saw it for the first time. I cannot get that shot out of my head. And ever since then, I felt that John Walker is not a good character. Well, not that he's a back. He is not a good person.
You know what? I kind of like the guy. I think he's a little overhated.
Well, okay, all right. So, like back when we were watching, Falcon and Winter Soldier, he was a very bad guy, and I did not like him because he was, he lost control.
Yeah.
In this movie, I'm actually a little warmed up to him a little bit because he is very arrogant. He is sarcastic, but he's now, to bless you, and he's now on the side of doing something good because he's gone through a lot, you know, as far as losing his family, and pretty much family, for most people is all they have. If you don't have family, then you have nothing, and that's how far down he fell, after, his family up and left him, and he's trying to rebuild himself and, rebuild his confidence. So he's not as bad as I thought he was. So he has some good in him. So he's actually a very good character. Shout out to Wyatt Russell. And, we'll talk about the rest of the actors as well, too. So, yes, I just wanted to just talk a little bit about who John Walker is. Okay. Right. And then after Sentry has gotten rid of, well, the Thunderbolts really just had nothing. There was nothing they could do, and they ran out.
Funny. They came out of that elevator looking cold,
Yeah.
and they ran back in so scared.
Yes, and they took the elevator back down, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Back down to the street.
Right.
They were done.
Yeah. Now this was interesting. So now he got rid of Thunderbolts. There were no match for him. Sentry now looks at himself as if he's a god. So
His rationale was real. Oh my goodness. His rationale was Valentina's like, yeah, he's better than the Avengers. And he's like, well, if the Avengers have an actual god on their team, doesn't that make me one too? And what god should be taking orders from a random lady? So he tries to kill her. She drops the kill switch. Mel picks it up. She kills Sentry. But Sentry's basically immortal. So the Void comes out, his dark side. I don't think he really appreciated, getting killed.
He got angry.
So the Void just kind of, look at his hand. Bunch of people got turned to ash.
Yeah, that was interesting because Valentina apparently knew nothing about this other side of Bob.
Which is embarrassing because you think after all the testing she did, she would at least know that he has a dark side that needs to be continued.
Exactly.
So he's like a glass cannon, essentially.
Exactly. Now that's one thing I wanted to step back a little bit. So after he defeated Thunderbolts and they ran out and, said, I'm out, I've had enough. Something that Valentina said to him is, well, I wanted you to kill them. And then he says, well, they're my friends. Why would I want to kill them?
Yeah, they're not a threat to me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's Bob talking, right? Because Bob has this relationship with Yelena and they're talking to each other and, they spend a little bit of time together. So that's understandable that he would say, okay, well, Bob is not interested in killing them because they're not a threat to him, so.
But Sentry's like half Bob and half Void.
Yeah.
He's got like the compassion and kindness of but like the sheer power of the void.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Very, very nice. Very nice. Yes. So now we're back down on the ground, right? And the Thunderbolts have emptied out. And Yelena at this point is like, I am done. This is not for me. And she, not in her exact words, but she considers the Thunderbolts as worthless. They're damaged. They're damaged individuals, and they can't defeat Sentry. And we have done all these bad things. Yeah, I read that already. So there's this great moment with Yelena and Alexi. Um, Alexi says to her that we have so many things we regret. And Yelena says that she has so many. And then Alexi says, well, when I look at you, I don't see your mistakes, you know? And I thought that was it was a very emotional scene, like to hear her say that. And it was well played, by both actors, David Harbour and Florence Pugh. They did a wonderful job. And
Film.
yeah, yeah, it was, you really sense that Yelena is really not just her, like they all have pain, and she displays it so well, and it was just a memorable scene, and then
I love this movie.
yeah, and then the void, right? All of a sudden, people are running in the streets, and then we see this darkness come over the city and this shadow up in the sky, and then all of a sudden, void is just
And you know the funny part? I think Avengers Tower is collapsing, and Red Guardian saves this little girl from the rubble. You know, the Avengers doing their thing. Oh God, I said it. The Thunderbolts doing their thing, and then and then Red Guardian's like, "It's okay, little girl, you're safe now." And then she gets turned to dust.
yeah. Now, did you know what was happening? Because when I saw it, it almost felt like again it was like the snap, but these people were I actually thought these people were getting killed. Like,
Yeah,
right. Because I don't
they
know.
were cooked.
Yeah, I don't know Sentry in the comic books, so I don't know. Right. Okay. So that's good because, here we are, two people who don't know the comics, and, we're looking at what we're seeing on the screen. And when he is turning people to ash, I thought they were like burned to death,
I don't think they were burned. I
yeah.
just thought they were permanently removed from this plane of existence.
Interesting. Okay. No, I thought they were just gone. Yeah. And then, yeah.
Reduced to atoms.
Right. And you have a good point with that little girl when Alexi says a little girl and says you're safe now, and then she disappears. Like, oh my, did they just kill a little girl? It's like I couldn't believe it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I was like, "You're an irredeemable monster."
yeah. I was like, wow. Can I tell you a part that actually got me teary eyed?
Hit me.
Okay. So Sentry is out and he's, destroying people, just casting shadows all over the place, and he's destroying the buildings. And you saw that crane that was coming down, and that crane knocked over into another building, and you have this slab of concrete falling. And there's this woman, I don't know what happened, she got injured maybe, and she was crawling on the ground, and there's this big slab of concrete coming up to hit her, and then Alexi stops it. And I think he actually held it up like, wow. Was it John first?
It was one of them. They all
Okay.
showed up anyway.
Yes, right. So, whether it was Alexi or John, uh, I recall Alexi holding it up.
Like with
And
his
then,
back.
yes, right. And then John comes in and helps him. And then
Ghost,
Bucky, and then
Elena.
Ghost, and then Elena, and all the five of them just take this big concrete and they just flip it over. And you just see the five of them standing there, and people started cheering. Yeah, I got emotional there. I thought they got me. Yeah. So wow. And how interesting it was where Elena just a few minutes ago said this team is nothing. We can't work together. And here they are. Yeah, they did it. So, all right. Now, all right, terror is still happening and things are continuing. Yelena, I think because of her connection with Bob, and she understands that Bob is also a person who's been through a lot of pain and trauma.
I'm going in.
Yeah. And she goes in to this dark hole. I don't even know what you call it. And, Alexi's like, no, Elena, no. And, I think that he thought the same thing that
My boy was
I
traumatized. You
that
should have seen him.
yeah, I think that she
Florence, David, and Lewis were carrying this film so hard. Like these guys all deserve Oscars for this movie.
yeah, it and she just walks into this hole and she returns to uh, uh, like some kind of a place where Bob, it might have been his room when he was younger, like he's in his safe house where he is curled up in a ball like a little boy, and he's hearing the sounds of his parents downstairs, his father abusing his mother.
And him.
Yeah, right. And I was gonna say, and I'm sure he got some of that abuse as well, and you know, and that would trigger, the anger that you know, Bob might have, accumulated over the years, which in turn created Sentry. You know what I mean? Like this is why Sentry exists, because of the abuse and the trauma that he's been through. And then
That voice came from.
right, and then they actually, and so what it is that they go into different places,
Different rooms.
different rooms, right?
It's a laboratory.
The lab, yes.
Of course, the Thunderbolts, they all try to go out the void, and they all get sat down, tied to the wall,
Yes.
you know, and poor Bob,
Right.
he doesn't know what to do, and eventually he gets so angry, he starts beating the void, and he's also becoming the void. He's like almost consumed. So Alexi, he breaks the debris, gets Yelena out, but he's still stuck, and Yelena tries to pull him off. All the Thunderbolts get themselves out, and they free him. They pull him off the void. The void is gone. Bob is back. The end. And all the people came back.
Yeah, right. Yes. And I was thinking about this today as I was writing, I was writing the notes, and trying to, unpack that scene where Bob is actually trying to, they're on the laboratory table and they fall over, and Bob is actually fighting the void, like punching him, and
Yeah, like Spidey and Green Goblin for No Way Home.
yeah,
That void was like, ah,
yeah.
that's exactly what it wanted.
But you know what I realized is that the void is him,
Yeah.
and he is the void. So he was trying to destroy the void, but there's no way you could do that without destroying himself. You know what I mean? So that was
Excellent symbolism.
that very, very interesting. And it took Yelena and the rest of the team to help him to realize, okay, the way to defeat the void is to not destroy him, but to control him, right? And the way to do that is to have people around you to help you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good lesson to learn from this. And who would have thought that you would learn something like this from a Marvel film? And I think that's the reason why this movie is so special to me. Because, most third acts in Marvel films, it's like a lot of explosions. Yeah, it's crash, bam, boom, and, just so much stuff going on. And
Boom, boom, boom.
yeah, I mean, it's like you see special effects and blah, 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 everything going around. Like, well, it's a lot. It could sometimes be a lot, and this was like personal, narrowed down, a man, trying to come to terms with his past and trying to overcome his grief and to move on with his life. And he was doing it all these years all by himself. And then he realized that he needed people.
Ally.
Yes, he needed people around him to help him, So I thought it was a great lesson to learn, and the reason why I think it resonates with people, because I'm hearing that, most people have seen the movie, enjoy the movie,
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever it made at the box office. It's just the fact that maybe not enough people came out to see the movie.
And I hope we see more. I really hope Thunderbolts makes $1 billion.
Yeah. So maybe the second weekend, they may make more money. Who knows? But if they don't see it, they missed out, and, something that there's a term they use in the entertainment business is that you're only as good as your last movie or your last record or your last album. So because Marvel right now is in a rut, and they had a track record of having this movie not performing, then the next movie not performing, and then this movie. So people just felt, bless you, okay, well, you had a string of failures. So why should I go and watch this movie, which is probably going to be another failure? But it's not. This is absolutely not a failure. This was a great movie. Um, I'm so glad we saw it. And then so let's finish up and just talk about the final scene where they get the team out of darkness, and like you said, everyone is back. The sun is back, and the darkness is lifted. Yeah.
Somehow, Valentina managed to get a whole press conference going. She's running away. The Thunderbolts are about to take her into custody. And then they break through into a live press conference where she introduces them as the new Avengers.
Were you shocked about that?
Kinda.
Yeah, I was not.
I think about it. I probably should have seen it coming because they have a Captain America and U.S. agent. They have a Black Widow and Yelena. They have a Thor and Sentry. So it is kind of an Avengers roster.
Interesting. Yeah.
Sebastian would have been like a Hawkeye had she lived to the end of the film.
Right. Yeah.
I don't really know what Ghost and Red Guardian are though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Red Guardian's Soviet Captain America, but that's U.S. agent.
Interesting. Yeah. I was surprised. I had no idea this was happening, but now you're right. It does make sense. Because I go back to that announcement that Marvel made as to the cast of Avengers Doomsday, and you saw that they had, along with the Avengers, Thunderbolts. And I'm saying to myself, remember we talked about it at the podcast. Why are they why are they in Avengers Doomsday? They're not Avengers. Well, they are. Apparently they are. So that's interesting. So I remember the final scene is after uh, Valentina introduces them as the new Avengers. Yelena comes to her and whispers, "We own you now." So we'll see how that goes. And then
hopefully those microphones aren't too sensitive.
let's talk about the mid and post credit scenes.
Yeah, so Alexi, he's in the supermarket and this random lady's there. He's like, "You should buy this wheat." That's awful. He tells her to buy some Wheaties with the Thunderbolts on them, but it's New Avengers. And she's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And then as she's walking away, she puts it back. It's hilarious.
Yeah, she was not interested in that box of cereal.
That's the big
so that was pretty cool. Yeah.
And we watch the credits. I see the Fantastic Four theme credit. I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
Yes.
So we get to the post-credit scene, and Sam Wilson's apparently suing the Avengers for using the name, which I don't think he could do. It's not like he was using it. They were actively trying to put together another Avengers team.
Good point.
Yelena, the Avengers, they get this alert about some unidentified thing from space showing up. They pull it up on the screen, and it's the Fantastic Four ship.
There you go. All right.
That's the cinema.
That's what a post-credit scene is supposed to do. Get you excited for the next movie. So we know Fantastic Four is coming out on July 25th, I believe. We are going to be there for that. I can't wait. I'm a little shocked that Sam would go as far as to try to sue them for the.
Isn't Bucky his friend?
Yes.
I suing him.
Right. So now remember,
our U.S. Agent Shield is a taco now.
Yes, the Shield's a taco.
Hooray.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yes. And apparently Bucky spoke to Sam, and Bucky says, well, the conversation didn't go well. I wonder why, because they're supposed to be good friends.
Yeah, they just talked to each other during Brave New World, and they were on good terms.
Absolutely right. Yeah, so I don't know what happened there, but we'll find out. You would think that Sam would say, okay, well, if you guys really want to be an Avenger, okay, let's have a conversation. See if you think that they're qualified enough to be an Avenger.
Yeah, see if maybe they could co-found the team.
Yeah. So
what happened there?
Well, I guess they're setting it up to be a clash between the Avengers and the New Avengers. I don't know. We'll find out. All right, but
maybe there's a reason there's a New Avengers and not the Avengers.
Yeah, but can they keep the name though? Can they call themselves the New Avengers if the name is trademarked?
No, but it's probably just so it's easier for us as the audience to tell the difference. Because if you're talking about the Avengers, you'd mean the Avengers. And if you mean the Thunderbolts, you say the New Avengers.
I get it.
It has taken them 6 years to assemble an Avengers roster and a decade in universe. So
it just makes sense to me to just have one team, whether it's called the Avengers or the New Avengers. You don't need two separate teams. So at some point, I think what's going to happen is that, they're going to either combine, absorb, one's going to, go away and the other one is going to, reign. I don't know.
Yeah,
But you can't have two Avengers teams.
so one of them just gets disbanded.
Yeah. Okay.
And I hope it's not the Thunderbolts because we just established why they work so good together as a team.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Maybe they could be like the Avengers Strike Force.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out. But that's our spoiler review of the Avengers. All right. So
Avengers.
of the new Avengers, you know, formerly Thunderbolts, which is why they have the asterisk. It's a temporary name. All right. So thank you so much. Yeah, now it makes sense. Now we know what the asterisk is for. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode. Keith, where can people find us?
You can find us wherever you get your podcast, socials, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fathers and Galaxy, website fathersandgalaxy.com. Please check out our merch store, fathersandgalaxy.myspreadshop.com, and our Patreon page, patreon.com/fathersandgalaxy.
All right. So thank you everyone for this again, once again, for giving up some of your time to watch or listen to our spoiler review of Thunderbolts. All right. There's a lot going on this year. We still got a lot of Marvel to talk about between now and, the end of the summer. So thank you once again. Until next time, take care and we will see you again.